If I were getting onto Medicare tomorrow, this is exactly what I would do to avoid lifetime penalties and simply to make sure that I have coverage that actually fits my life. My name is Brittany Garrison. I'm a licensed health and life insurance broker, and my overall objective is simply to help make Medicare make sense to you. I want to help you make it understandable, but most importantly, to help you feel empowered in your decisions around your healthcare. And in this video, I'm going to be walking you step by step through the steps that I would take if I were turning 65 tomorrow, so you know what to do too, okay? So let's get into it. The very first step is going to be enrolling into Medicare Part A and Part B. Now, that Part A is usually free if you've worked 10 years or you've worked 40 quarters in the United States. And that's going to cover your hospital stays, your skilled nursing, and some limited home health care. Now, that Part B is going to cover outpatient care, doctor's visits, preventative services, diagnostics, things like that. And the premium when it comes to Part B in 2025 is $185 monthly. And that's usually taken directly from your Social Security check. Now, the area that most people don't realize when it comes to Part A and Part B is that Part A and Part B only cover 80% of your costs. Now, that other 20%, yeah, that's on you. Okay. The other 20% is on you. And guess what that means? That means that there's no cap, right? So that means if you specifically go somewhere in particular, that Part A, Part B is going to cover 80%, and that 20% is all up to you to come up with. So there's no maximum out of pocket. That means there's no safety net. Let's say you have a $60,000 hospital bill. You out of pocket would owe 12,000. And so that's why the next decision that I'm about to break down and what I'm about to talk about next is the most important decision when it comes to now your Medicare. We got started with the foundation of your Part A and your Part B, but this next section is what I call the fork in the road of Medicare, because there's two different routes that you can take in regards to this, right? Those two options is to have a Medicare supplement, which is also known as what we call a Medigap plan. You may have heard it as that, or a Medicare Advantage plan, which is also known as a Medicare Part C. Okay. Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement. So let's break down both so you understand the both two options. The first one, we'll start with Medicare Supplement. Now, with this route in particular, Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B will still remain your primary coverage. Your supplemental plan is your secondary coverage, meaning it's what's filling in the gap. So when we talk about that 80% again, right, the supplemental plan is actually what is going to cover the 20% that you would normally be responsible for. Okay. And now, if you choose what's the most common plan right now for Medigap plans is a Plan G, right? So let's say you chose a Plan G. Now you will pay a small deductible of $240 per year, and then it covers you at 100%. So you'll pay a small deductible, $240 yearly, and then that Medigap plan, Medicare Supplement, is going to pay and cover you at 100%. So that means there are no copays. That means there are no networks, right? You can go to any doctor, any hospital in the United States that takes Medicare with your Medicare supplement. However, what you want to notate on, and if you're taking notes, this is where you want to write this down. With a Medicare supplement, you are going to be paying a monthly premium. Now, depending on your zip code, your age, your gender, you might pay anywhere between $100 to $200 per month, especially if you're just getting onto Medicare, right? But in addition to that, you will need to add the following. Make sure you take notes right here. You're going to need to add a Part D prescription drug plan. Secondly, you're going to make sure you need, if you're the person that wants dental, you want vision, you have hearing aids, or you expect to need them in the future, you're going to want to add on optional dental, vision, and hearing coverage, right? So all in all, now, the other route that you can take, right? Our other route is going to be Medicare Advantage, Medicare Part C. Now, this is a Medicare bundle, okay? Now, it takes the place of your Part A and your Part B. It is owned by private insurance companies, okay? And so with that, your private insurance company is now going to take the place of that Medicare Part A and your Part B. But with this Medicare Advantage plan, you're going to have your Part A, your Part B, typically your Part D, and then you add in the extras like dental, vision, hearing. Some of them have gym membership, transportation, and some other great things and great benefits to that, right? So you have your Part A, Part B, Part D, and all of that little razzle dazzle on the inside. We call that Medicare Part C, right? And now this is packaged and often as a $0 monthly premium. But the difference is with Medicare Advantage, you're going to have networks. So if you're somebody who's getting off of your employer coverage, right, and you're used to being in network and finding a doctor in network or having copays, deductibles, maximum out of pocket, I tell people all the time that Medicare Advantage is the most like an employer plan, right? It's pretty comparable and feels like what it felt like typically being on employer plans, right? Only you were paying out of your paycheck monthly. But with this plan now, you have your copays, right? So if you go to the doctor and you see a specialist or you have an ambulatory ride, you will now pay a copay for that service. You may have a deductible, you and your maximum out of pocket cost limit, which is your safety net in regards to how much you will spend over the course of a year. Now, this is managed care, right? It's not free for all. And so, what you want to ask yourself when you're deciding between the two, because this is the biggest question that people ask me all the time is, well, how do I know which one is better? Why would I pick this? You have to ask yourself what's best for you. Medicare is not one size fits all, right? You get your Part A, you get your Part B. But when you're at that crossroad, when you're at that fork in the road and you have to decide between a Medicare Advantage plan or a Medicare Supplement, this is where you have to decide a couple things. It's about your budget. It's about your comfortability. Are you the person that prefers not to have any networks? Are you sick of that? Right? Or you're the individual that says, I like to pay as I go. I like to pay as needed. Right? Do I value lower premiums or do I prefer to have a little bit more freedom when it comes to my coverage? Those are the questions you want to ask yourself when it comes to making a decision. Now, the next thing you'll need to consider is your prescription coverage. Okay. So this is your Medicare Part D. Now, if you're going the supplement route, right, the Medigap route, you will need a standalone Part D plan. Okay. Now, these typically can range between $0 to $100 a month, depending on your prescriptions, your local pharmacy, but also the carrier you decide to go with. But there's a critical part that I want to make sure that I touch on here is that if you delay Part D, Medicare will penalize you. So for every single month for the rest of your life, you will have some sort of penalization. So it's not something that you want to skip ever, right? I know you may still be working. I know you may still be on your employer coverage, but that Medicare Part D is something that you want to make sure that you get. You're still working at 65. If you're the individual that's still working at 65, that's okay. You're deciding to stay on your employer plan. You don't enroll into Medicare. Perfectly fine. If you file the right paperwork to delay it, you want to make sure that Medicare knows that you're delaying, you're staying on your employer coverage. But if you don't, you could get hit with late enrollment penalties, okay? On both your Part B and your Part D, and that does not go away. These are lifelong penalties. And this is why education matters. This is why I do what I do. This is why you can't only rely on a Google. This is why you want to talk to a professional so you don't have any guesswork here, right? But this is why I made this channel, and this is why I'll be talking about it so you can talk to a professional all the time. Now, the other thing with that is like if you're delaying your Medicare, you want to make sure that your job is comparable coverage, okay? In order for you to make sure your Part D and your Part B is eligible for delay while you're still on your employer coverage, it needs to be comparable. Comparable coverage in the eyes of Medicare is coverage in which your employer has more than 20 employees, okay? So if you work somewhere where your employer does not have more than 20 employees, then you're going to want to go ahead and get your Part B started. If it is comparable coverage and you can make sure of that, then you're perfectly fine with delaying that Part B until you actually decide to retire. Because we get it. We understand. Some people are still working at 66, 67, even up to 70, 72, which is perfectly fine. So you want to make sure that you understand that your job and employer coverage is comparable before you decide to delay that Part B or Part D, okay? Now, let's talk about what Medicare does not cover, okay? We don't want any shockers. It's because it's not just about the doctor's visits. It's not just about prescriptions. Here's some things that Medicare is missing. And when we talk about Medicare, I'm talking about both. I'm talking about the Part A and Part B alone. That's what we call traditional or original Medicare. Now, that alone does not cover your dental. It does not cover your vision. It does not cover your hearing. It does not cover long-term care. It does not cover recovering anything after a stroke or a cancer diagnosis. Your Medicare plan will get you to the hospital, but you want to think about who's going to cover your bills while you're recovering, right? And so I also always recommend looking into things like cancer, heart attack, stroke plans, hospital indemnity coverage, dental, vision, and hearing add ons, so that all of the gaps that may be there are all covered. Now, these extras are typically anywhere between $10 to $50 a month, depending on which one you're taking, okay? But it could save you thousands of dollars in the long run. And I'll make a video specifically on this type of coverage so that you guys can get the details in regards to that in general. But as I wrap up here, I want to recap everything that we've talked about thus far. If I was turning 65 tomorrow, here's exactly what I would do. One, we're going to enroll in Medicare Part A and Part B. Number two, we're going to choose between a Medicare Supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan. Number three, you're going to add on that Part D prescription drug coverage if needed. And then number four, you are going to fill in the gaps like dental, vision, hearing, income protection, right? And you're going to want to make sure that all of that is done properly to avoid any kind of lifetime penalties. And you don't have to do this alone, right? I created a guide, right? A Medicare planning guide. It is a free resource to you for being here. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's a resource that I break down everything that I talked about today on this video. And it breaks it down so that you can read it. If you're the person that likes to watch videos, but I want to read along to understand what it is that you're talking about and how this benefits me and how I can start to plan smartly and start smartly, I want you to comment. You can click the button below to get a copy of the free guide and make sure you have that resource so you really understand how to plan properly when it comes to Medicare. I answer every single question. If you have a comment, if there are questions that you have after this video, make sure that you drop them in the comments so that I can answer them on the next video, okay? This is not just about talking, but it's about your health. This is about your future. So I want to help you get it right together. So I'll see you guys soon. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get an alert anytime I make a new video. And I'll talk to you guys soon.